So line speed, weight, it's really important that you pick a good fly line. It's probably the most important part of your whole setup. You can go to Cabela's right now and spend $100 on a fly rod. It's a good fly rod. You can buy a bunch of used fly rods that are 15, 20 years old. I have them here. Some of them are 35 years old. They were the best rod at the time, but they're nothing compared to the rods today. That's what people will tell you. But if you take care of your equipment, put the right line on it, it'll give you all the performance of the hottiest, super duper, most expensive one you can buy. So it depends on how you want to spend your money and what kind of performance you get. I think golfers do that thing now. As you get older, they try to sell you graphite shafts, so your swing speed goes up and stuff. You get a little more flexibility and a little more forgiveness in it. Whereas a lot of people I've seen that are good golfers that are older, they might go down to a regular shaft, but they really haven't gone to, because they like the control factor. And then same thing's going to happen with a fly rod. If you have a soft, noodly rod, you're not going to have a lot of control on it. If you have a real heavy fly line that's not matched to your rod, or a leader that's inappropriate for the fly you're using, you're not going to be able to cast really well. Casting components. Anybody, other questions about fly lines? Because almost everything we're buying right now is a shooting head. Just know that. What I'll talk about next is where you want to make that cast. Now we can obviously, I've got the majority of the head still here. It's in the rod. So we can make cast short, we're on a boat, flats boat, or a little bumpet. That's a cast. That catches fish. Okay? As long as you don't spook fish. That will definitely, because the closer you are, the stealthier you have to be. You don't want to rock on the boat. You don't want to do this when you're casting, because it'll throw little bow weights out and cause problems for you. Even when you're waiting, it's an issue. And so yes, you can make very short casts. I don't have all the line out, but the rod's just handling that fine. No problem. Nice tight loop. And you can still shoot a little bit of line if the fish swims farther away. And you can lengthen your cast accordingly. That's all well and good. The moment you start carrying line beyond what's called the hinge, so that every one of these lines I've talked about has basically got a color change on it. And it's probably what most of you have on your rods. And if you don't, let me know, because I'll talk about that too. Where that color changes, if you're not within 1 or 2 feet of it, you're trying to turn over that heavy head with this skinny running line. So in other words, okay, now I have about 10 or 12 feet of head out there, right? And I have a very long hinge. Well, unless you're a really experienced caster, I'll wait for you. You're going to have a hard time turning over that heavy head and getting a tight loop. See how that loop almost automatically opens up a little bit more? And I'm trying to carry a lot more line. I'm carrying like 60 feet of line. Now, yes, you can make long casts with it, but it's hard to handle. You can make that same cast. See about that spot there with that. Doesn't get hung up here.
I do read them.
Shorten it up to an appropriate hinge, one back cast, and it makes the same cast. I didn't need that extra 10 or 15 feet of line. Now, when you're in a rocking boat in wind, you've got wind resistant and what I call wind drag on the fly. You'll see your fly buffeting in the wind and it's not traveling straight because there's a lot of material there and it may not be the most aerodynamic. You're right up there with the 737 guys at Boeing, and I'm not sure that's the problem, but so you want to, again, you can adjust that a little bit with your lead. Stiffer, longer butt section. That's the first part of your leader. When you have a leader, the first part of that leader is called your butt section. It's always going to be stiffer and larger in diameter than what is called your tippet, which is the part that attaches to your fly. This is a tapered leader. I don't normally buy these. I bought it today just for the grass. These are $5 to $8, depending on what store you buy them at. And they run, and you can get them in any length. And when you tie on a couple flies, eventually you use up this little light tippet material that's been extruded. There's no knots in it, so it doesn't grab. And then eventually you're going to have to tie a knot in here and add some tippet material because you don't want to throw that $6, $7, $8 leader away. I tie all my own leaders. You can buy the same amount of material. You can take, if you're tying them in monofilament, for $10, you can buy enough leader material of 3 or 4 different diameters and pound test strengths. Tie your own leader and probably make 25 or 30 for the same price. So it's significantly different. Plus, you're going to get better performance out of your fly line, out of your fly casting and your flies, your presentations. So, heavier flies, a little bit longer and stiffer butt section. You want your butt to be pretty much the same diameter at the end of your fly line. Remember I talked about the thin taper, and then as we go back, it starts to get a little larger. It's a very short front taper. That's what all these lines are. Not the greatest thing for presentation. So the longer your leader is, the more stealth you'll have in presenting your fly. Because your fly line is going to hit the water pretty hard because, again, short front taper. You'll take, I have tapers on some of those lines there that are 14, 15 feet long fly line. And then we put a leader on that. So stealth is, in the presentation, is going to be more of an issue with that type of fishery. Then that's where you want to be. You can do that with a single-hand rod as well. And then you see it's thicker here, it's thicker, it's thicker, it's thicker, and eventually, I get down to the right spot. It starts to get like rope here. And again, this is only, in this case, a 7 weight.
And that shooting has only, what, 35 feet?
35 feet long. That's the whole thing right there. And now you're down to your running line. You're back down to skinny line. So where I was trying to cast that is right in here. That's okay. Anything forward of that is fine. Once you get to this point, the more you carry of this skinny line and try to make that cast, it doesn't turn over well. So I recommend you not doing that at any level of experience. You really don't need to do that. You can still make the same cast using the head if your mechanics are good. Question?
What do you, for your leaders, what do you suggest for, two questions, what size do you go down to, once or twice, or, you know?
3 at the minimum,
3?
4 for longer leaders.
Really?
Yeah.
And what length?
So I'll give you a basic leader setup. 8 weight line, 40-pound test butt section. Now, every line manufacturer out there that's making monofilament and their copolymers and polymers, and there's lots of different types of regular monofilament, I can call them monofilament, but they're different constituents that make the line. All the way up to fluorocarbon. They'll all be different diameters. Many will be of different stiffness. I have some in the boat, and I'll show you later and stuff. You get 3 different manufacturers, 3 different 20-pound test fluorocarbon, and every one of them is a little different on the stiffness, and every one is a little bit different on the diameter. You can make that as much rocket science as you want and play around with it. You get something that works for you. Because generally, you're not going to change your butt section too often. You can put it on your rod. If you're not, casting in oyster bars and having to yank it out of mangroves all the time, you're probably not going to mess that up too much. Then your midsection. So in this case, but this is set up for demo, not necessarily fishing. But what I normally fish on here is a 40-pound butt section, 5 to 6 feet long. I like longer leaders. I once asked, some of the people that are here probably remember it, I think it was in a fly tying class I was teaching, that I asked everybody what is their preferred length of leader that they use. And the answer I was hoping to get was, well, leader can change with every fly that I use. Basically, if you're going to go out and fish a specific species in a specific area that you fish regularly, and there might be 4 or 5 flies that you're going to use there, that's pretty narrow. You're not digging through a whole fly box, changing dramatically from fly to fly. You can use the same recipe. So, about 5 feet of butt section, 40-pound test, then 30, 3 feet. So I haven't gone down quite half, just slightly more than that. So now I'm already at 8 feet. The average prepackaged leader is 9 feet long, 7.5 or a 9. Now, they do make longer ones, but almost nobody fishes them. The answer I got was between 4.5 and 7. Now, the only reason why I'd fish a 4.5-foot leader is because I'm fishing a sinking line, and I want my fly to be down at the same level as my sinking line. Because if you have a sinking line, this is a floating line, which we fish mostly here in Florida. I can fish sinking lines specific, like stuff deep water. So you have a sinking line. Your sinking line is down here in the water column, and your leader's not going to sink at the same rate. And if your fly doesn't have any weight built into it, it's not going to sink in the same rate. You see that big loop that's in that line? And it's kind of, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not much. Here's your fly. There's the fish. Your fly line is where it's supposed to be, but you got a 9 or 10-foot leader on here. That doesn't really work out too good. So, building weight into your fly on a 9 or 10-foot leader is just going to cause real casting problems for you. You'll probably end up just snapping it off most of the time. So you want to shorten that leader now. So now you got this bow, but guess what? There's the tippet. There's all that light stuff here for that length, but your leader now is actually down there by where the end of that fly line is, so your presentation is in the water column where those fish are going to be. If you're fishing current in the river, bridges at night, and you like catching snook, like me, Sinking lines, short leaders, 3.5, 4 feet, max. That's all you need. It's nighttime, one. Two is, as sensitive as the lateral line is on the snook, and it is, very much so and so, they're not gonna have a problem with that, I can guarantee you. You don't have to worry about using fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon's good for abrasion resistant. You have materials, monofilament, fluorocarbons, some are hydrophobic, some are not, which means some will float to some degree, others will sink to some degree. They're not dramatic either way. If you're a tarpon fisherman, I can tell you right now, the average leader length for tarpon, especially in the tournament series here, the guys in the know, 14 to 16 foot long. There's not many people that can turn that over, even the ones doing it, and the guides that convince them to do that. So you got to practice with it. The flies for tarpon are actually quite small and quite light, and they're very rarely, if anything, have any kind of weight to them. It's just the weight of the hook. When you tie flies, we always want to try to balance the fly with the hook, the shank, the diameter of the shank, the weight, because it's all about everything kind of working together to make the best cast, the best presentation, and get the fly where you want it. Tarpon have both fish would have an inferior mouth, like a redfish. Tarpon don't. They eat up this way. They're almost always looking up. If your fly's below a tarpon, when you present it to a tarpon, you're basically going to watch him swim by. He's not going to dive down and get it. He's not going to tail and it's just not going to happen. And then the other thing is too, when you cast the fly, you're going to cast the fly. You get it out there, you throw it out in the water, and the fish is coming. You've led the fish to some degree. They're always moving. Very rarely is a tarpon just sitting there. It doesn't count it too often. So you want to know how quickly your fly sinks. That makes a difference on where you put the fly in relationship to the fish. If you cast 15 feet in front of it and your fly is sinking at 1 foot per second, because of the hook diameter is really heavy that you use, by the time that fish travels, you might only be in 5 or 6 feet of water, but generally the tarpon are swimming in 3 places in the water column, like most fish. Close to the top, somewhere in the middle of the water column, or with their belly on the bottom, scraping. And oceanside fish, generally they're traveling a little bit lower, and you'll get a few fish, maybe the lead fish, that's up a little bit higher, especially if you're gulping in. So knowing where your lead is, and I'm going to show you a little drill for that in a minute. So leader length is very, very important. General rule of thumb, anywhere between 8 and 10 feet is probably good for most of the fishing we do, because it adds a degree of stealth. You don't have this rope landing in close proximity to where your flies land, because it'll spook fish, guaranteed. The other thing is where you make the presentation to the fish. If you're coming over here with that loopy-doopy-doo cast, and there is times for this, what I call stop or finish high cast, because you want the fly to land soft. Boom. See where that fly landed in relation to that little tail right there? That's your sight fishing for tail and fish. That's about as good as it gets. And you notice it came in really soft. Up, soft. Boom. Right back there again. Nice. When you're casting it, fish are subject to, say this first, preface this with this. Fish are subject to predation from above from the time that they're born. Birds, particularly. If you're ever on the water and you see a flight of pelicans go over and a school of fish blow up, and they're quite a ways away. It's amazing the angle, the cone of vision that they have from where they're in the water and how acutely aware they are of what's going on up above. So if your cast is here and coming down, they can see that cast like over here. If your cast is over here, and you put that fly in, they're not going to see it. That fly is just going to land on top of them. They're never even going to know it's there. I was practicing something yesterday. It was really, I think, working out really well. It was a little extreme, but I'm on the bow of the boat. I see my fish where I see my fish. I got my truck fish on it a little bit. I was literally, just like that, unrolling it right on the surface of the water, right up to the fish. Just driving it right out. Rolling, just like, see where that fly went? Perfect spot for that fish. Very, very accurate, plenty of line speed, good accuracy. Fish, you creeping it along.